How are you doing today?
I'm great, Diksha. I'm
Well,
great. Great, great, great. How are you?
I am very happy and I'm super excited to welcome you to the first episode of CEO Chronicles. This series is so close to my heart because I've been wanting to do something for my audience and, giving them really crisp, great content on how to grow business. And
Hmm.
I couldn't think of anyone else but you to start this beautiful journey with. So yeah, I wanted to have you. So for our viewers who don't know much about Mr. Mike, Mike happens to be a brilliant person. Above all, he's an author. He's an Ironman. A person who's participated in the Ironman challenge, and he's also an international keynote speaker. He's an author. Moreover, he heads a company called Hypergrowth, who is actually into helping clients increase their revenue, rather double their revenue within, I think, the first year, first 6 months. Um,
Yeah.
and so on through their unique sales strategies, coachings, and so on. So that's exactly what we're going to be talking about. How has Mike grown from zero to hero, and how many number of reviews and what strategies has he used? So, Mike, are you good to get started?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. That's a really nice introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Okay, brilliant. So, first question. When
Mm.
did you think about starting your own business and how old were you then?
I actually started my first business when I was 17.
Wow.
Yeah, I actually started when I was 17, incorporated officially when I was 18. And that first business was a door-to-door sales company. So yeah, I kind of got baptized in sales, in the deep end kind of thing.
Okay. And when did this idea of, say, SME Skills Academy come into place?
That came into place after I did my door-to-door, I started in my career started in sales when I was 17. I did that until I was about 22. I ended up running my own door-to-door sales company. I ended up building that company by the time I was 20, 21 to about 1,000 people. We became one of the biggest door-to-door sales companies in the UK, and it was very intense and fast and big growth kind of sales environments. And when I transitioned out of that when I was 22, I didn't really have any formal education, so to speak, but I had this incredible background in sales and training people and developing sales teams and hitting KPIs and all that kind of good stuff. And just through, to be honest, just through networking, I met so many business owners that had great ideas, great products, great concepts. The one thing they all, not all, but the one thing a lot of them seemed to lack was the ability to sell, right? And look, lo and behold, I didn't have a great idea, but the one thing I knew how to do was sell anything, right? So that's where the concept of helping entrepreneurs, business owners to become more successful with whatever it is that they have and sell more of that. That's when that was born. Yeah.
That's really interesting. So let's say you started this at the age of 22. If you don't mind me asking, how old are you now?
Now I'm 32. So I actually
Oh,
turned
you're
30.
32. Wow. So
Yeah.
you've done all of this in 10 years. That is brilliant.
Yeah, yeah,
Very
yeah. We've been going 10 years. Well, now it'll be 11 years. Yeah, 11 years. 11 years actually 11 years in 2 days. Two
Really?
days.
Wow. Congratulations.
I remember that you remember the day you start, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I remember the day I started on September 16th, 2018. So
There you
yeah,
go. There you
that's
go. For me, it was May the 27th.
brilliant. Okay. Now I'm coming to one the most important question. We all have this breakthrough year in our business journeys, okay?
Yeah.
Where we go from like, okay, I'm making about say $100 and I'm making 500 now. So
Mm,
that year.
yeah.
When was that year for you? And how did that happen? What do you think led to that growth?
Yeah, I think for me, I started in the first year was okay, second year was pretty tough, third year was pretty tough, but then the fourth year and fifth year, I think the fifth year we really kind of exploded. I franchised the business, we went international, I actually ended up opening another business. I ended up opening an investment consultancy, which I sold 3 years later. You know, I just really, yeah, in the fourth, fifth year, we really got our gear into stride. I think what we figured out was, and it was kind of one of the biggest things I figured out. I read a book actually called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, where he talks about, different hats that the business needs to have, right? And that was, I remember that year I even had a CEO, running my business for 3 years. It was great, and but yeah, the fourth, fifth year was kind of where it started to go to the next level. And I think it went to the next level because I understood how to run the business, not just how to run sales, right? And there's a big difference. I think, when you look at so many business owners, a lot of them, for example, are very good at what they do, right? Like a lawyer. A lawyer is very good at being a lawyer. But a lawyer, just because a lawyer is great at being a lawyer in a law firm, doesn't necessarily mean he or she is built, well, not so much as built, but has the skills to go and run a business, because it's a very different environment, right? So for me, it took me 3, 4 years to understand the different skills I needed to have to be able to run a business and not just drive sales.
Right. Okay. So it is when you adapted all those different skills put together,
Yeah.
you had the breakthrough moment. Okay.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
I think the biggest thing as well, one of the biggest things was investing in my people through the right stages. I was, I was very lucky young in my career that I was trained to train people, build teams, and I was taught the concept of hire people to grow your business, right? It is better to have, 10 people doing one sale each than having just you doing 10 sales, right? So I kind of understood that concept very early on. And I remember the big breakthrough for me, actually, what happened was in year 3, I hired an amazing admin. I hired an amazing, amazing admin who actually 2 years later became my CEO. She
Wow.
kind of, yeah, she was my admin at the start. She worked with me for 5 years. She became my CEO. After 3 years, she went on and set up her own. But finding the right people, training them, putting them in the right places in the business was a huge, huge turning moment.
Brilliant, brilliant. Okay, my next question is, you mentioned something very crucial called franchising. Okay, you
Hmm.
decided to franchise the business. Now, there's this thinking, okay, that
Hmm.
when we're doing something, we'd rather get perfect at it. So, for instance, if I'm running my content marketing business in Dubai,
Hmm.
so then it's like, oh no, you work on penetrating the market further, like
Yeah,
just penetrate Dubai first, and when you come to a point where you're everywhere, then you go and franchise, and then you go into different countries and so on.
yeah.
What are your thoughts on this myth or reality, that's something that you need to tell?
No, I don't think it's a myth or a reality. I think it's just more people's opinions and kind of whatever their goals are with their business, right? For me, my goal with my business was always I wanted to be an international business. I wanted to travel. I wanted to do speaking engagements all over the world. There was one month where I was in Nigeria one month. The next week I came back, I went to India. I came back, I went to Bahrain. I came back, I then went to Spain. And all of that was in the period of a month doing speaking engagements, right? Trying to drum up business.
Right.
I think in between there, I had to do a webinar for one of our franchisees in Colombia, right?
Mhm.
So for me, the goal was always to have a huge impact on the SME community. And it was always to teach as many people as we could how to sell, right? I'm so passionate about it. I think people transform their lives in so many ways more than just making money, right? So much of when they learn how to sell, so much transforms. And so for me, franchising was never about when we get big enough, right? It was more about when I know the system works, let's go, right? My first franchise, for example, I mean, I'm not going to say it, but my first franchise, I'll tell you what, they definitely didn't pay what we were charging, now for a franchise, right? But because you go on that learning journey, right? You go and you're learning. My first customers definitely didn't pay what our customers pay now, right? But you kind of go on that learning journey. And I
Yeah.
think I'm a big believer of learning by doing, and
Right.
just, as long as you're doing the best you can, and you're delivering a result for people, that's always going to improve. It's always going to improve.
So I actually just want to know a little bit more about this whole decision that you've taken to franchise and grow a business, because I think it's a brilliant model. And of course, a lot of the SMEs do not use it as much
Yeah.
as they should. Okay, so that's
Mm.
something there. When I mean, so of course you decided you need to go international, you needed to go franchise and so on. So you tried to connect with people in the local countries who had
Well,
local experience. What did
I'll tell you why I decided to go franchise, right?
you
If you think about it, right?
Yeah.
If your goal as a business is to, whatever your goal is, right? If your goal is to expand
Hmm.
and work with as many people as you can
Yeah. Of
worldwide and have a big impact, and if that is your goal, and that is not everybody's goal, but if that is your
course.
goal,
Yeah.
franchising is, I think, the best way of doing it,
That's right.
right?
I agree.
Because why? Because if I want to go and open an office, for example, we had a franchisee in Colombia, right?
Yeah.
Now, you know, for me to open up an office or to get a presence or to have my brand represented in Colombia, I would have to hire people. I would have to do market research. Blah, there's so many things I'd have to do, right? Whereas a franchisee, someone approaching me in their territory, going, actually, we'd like to represent the business, we'd like to work together. There's so many benefits, so much better than hiring and developing a team out there. So
I
for
agree.
me, it was a very logical decision how to do it. And how I found people was, I just used to advertise through the local directories. And I never had the concept of having we had franchisees
Hmm.
in Saudi Arabia, in
Yep.
Kuwait, in Colombia, in Dubai,
Hmm.
in Spain. It was never the objective actually to have people in those countries. It
Right.
just kind of happened because of our advertising, right? Yeah, we advertised, people came, and then if it made sense, we would set them up.
Okay. One big challenge that franchising businesses face is ensuring the quality of services remains consistent throughout. So, how do
Yeah,
you ensure your quality is maintained?
yeah, that was a big challenge. That was a really big challenge, actually. In the beginning, it was really difficult, actually, because, especially with what we were doing, which was kind of coaching consultancy, how do you translate that level of knowledge, right? It's a
Sure.
lot of knowledge from
Yeah.
one person to another person. But actually, what we did was we pretty much made everything so systematic, right? If you look at McDonald's business model, right? McDonald's is a brilliant, whether you like them or not, they're a brilliant business model from the perspective that if somebody has enough money to buy a McDonald's,
Mm.
they will be successful, right? They
Yes.
will be successful. There's no denying that, right?
Yes. Yes.
Because once they buy that McDonald's, even down to the how long you should wash your hands for, even down to how long you should put the chips in the oil, right? It's all there,
The
right?
SOP,
So
yeah, has been
the
put out.
recipe is all
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So when it came to franchising, I pretty much replicated the same concept from, when you look at a business has, I think, five fundamental areas, right? You've got sales, marketing, finance, delivery, and your team, right? So team, sales, finance, delivery. And really, what a franchisee needs to be able to do is they need to be able to do sales and they need to be able to do delivery, right? Because you as a headquarter, you will help them develop a team, you will kind of work the team, you will do the finances, you should also be doing marketing, right? So to make that business relationship work, they need to do sales and delivery, right? And most business owners struggle just doing sales and delivery and everything else. So the franchise relationship works beautifully because if we as the franchisor play our parts and the franchisee as their part plays their part, it works beautifully. So for them to play their part, they need to know what they need to do with sales. They need to know what they need to do with delivery. And as long as that is very structured, most people can follow it. Most people can get a result. And I think things are going to go wrong, right? It's not so much about being afraid of when it goes wrong, right? Because it is going to go wrong at some point. Something is going to mess up,
Sure,
right?
sure,
It's
sure.
it's it. I think it's more about just when it messes up, um, doing your best to fix the situation, right? If that means you've got to give money back to a client, fine. You've got to do that, right? If that means you've just got to, do extra work to help the client, fine. You've got to do that, right? To be honest, we were very lucky because our first few franchisees were, with all respect to them and respect to us as well, they weren't very good, right? So actually, we fixed a lot of our mistakes early, so that by the time we started to get some really good people, we just flew.
And at what year of your business did you start franchising?
At what?
What year? Like year 1, year 2, year 3? Which year?
We started franchising at what was it? Year 4. Year 4, we started franchising. Yeah.
Nice.
And then year 5 was when it really kind of took off.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Very nice. Okay. Now I'm going to come to my final question. That is, tell me 3 strategies that changed the way you do business today. Like 3 things you're going like, okay, this is what I have learned. This is what have changed things for good for me.
I think one thing that really helped me, right, was after, for example, the first 3 years of my business, 2 years, I used to get burnt out a lot, right? I used to just, I used to work, you know what it's like. We all know what it's like. You're running a business, you're working 12-hour days sometimes on a short day, right? So you're really working, working your butt off. And what happens is I think you end up just other parts of your life end up not doing very well. And that brings more pressure back on your business. Actually, what I learned, one big rule that I learned is that, whatever happens, the sun's going to rise again tomorrow. Let me look after myself. Let me come back and do whatever I need to do tomorrow. So, for example, from year 3 onwards, 4, I had a rule that was I would never work past 5:30 or 6 p.m. No matter what was happening, I would never do it. And as much as possible, I would try to never work on the weekends, right? I would try. Now, obviously, there were weekends where we do something, conferences on a Saturday, fine. But, because I think as business owners, we forget that we have to look after ourselves. We have to manage ourselves, right? So for me, that became a big thing. I think also looking after your health, your fitness is a huge, massively important thing. Like you were saying earlier, for me, I've done like these Ironmans. I'm now into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But I think looking after your health as a business owner is really, really important. Because if you don't do that, eventually you start to feel tired. You don't feel good. You don't feel the best version of yourself. And then you have all the stuff that you need to do with the business. You're just not going to execute very well, right? So that's one, I think. I think the second thing is kind of who you surround yourself with, right? I'm very lucky that, some of my closest clients became great friends, right? And so we have this amazing mentality where we connect, we understand each other, and I think it's very, very important to have that type of environment, right? And then I think the third thing is to just constantly be, and it's kind of, people say this all the time, but to constantly be evolving, constantly be adapting, constantly be looking for maybe what the next thing is, and maybe for a period of time in business, you find something that's just hits it and it's gold dust. Fine, keep that going. And then maybe after a while, you need to transition and do something else. But I think those 3 things kind of really helped me to just, understand that you're in business for the journey. There's not really a
destination.
There's not really a destination, right? You're in it for the, I hope to be in business for another 50 years, well, maybe 20 years, right? Whatever, right? But, you hope to be in business for the long term. You're not in it for just 1 year, 1 month, make some money, see you later, right? And I think once you look at it that way, everything becomes much, much easier, right? Because I think in business, we have this whole, we have to do everything now, when actually not everything needs to be done now, right? So, yeah, that really helped me actually.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike, for your time. I think what you shared with us was extremely gold dust for me, at least, and I think my viewers would definitely benefit a lot more from it. Okay, last thing, if someone has to get in touch with you for a consultancy or for hypergrowth, etc., what's the best way?
Yeah, the best way, probably add me on LinkedIn, Michael Graham. If you type in Michael Graham, SME Skills, Hypergrowth, or drop me an email. Drop me an email at mike@hypergrowth.me. And yeah, I'm more than happy to have a chat and talk business, talk sales, talk Ironman, talk jiu-jitsu. Actually, my new latest love is scuba diving. So
Wow,
we can talk about that as well.
awesome. Sounds great. Thank you so much, Mike, for your time. And viewers, Mike's insights are wonderful, super great. Have a chat with him. He's someone who can actually take your not take, that would be an understatement, explode your sales and do really well with you. So yeah, up until next week, I say a goodbye. Take care. Thank you.